Here's a useful thought experiment when considering questions of gay civil rights. Imagine that you are a heterosexual person. You feel sexual desire for those of your opposite sex. But you live a life of total celibacy. From birth to death, you never have sex with a single person. You die a virgin. Are you still a heterosexual? Now imagine that you're homosexual. You feel sexual desire for members of your own sex. Same thing. From birth to death, total celibacy. You die a virgin. Never have sex with a single person. Never perform a single sex act. Are you still homosexual? Now we can apply this to pretty much any sexual orientation you'd like. Bisexual. You feel sexual desire for both those of your own sex and those of the opposite sex. But you never actually have sex with anybody. Are you still bisexual? Or even asexual? You don't feel a great deal of sexual desire for anybody, but perhaps you find yourself having sex more often than you would like. Are you still asexual? See, to me, the answer to this, to all of these questions in this thought experiment is yes, you are. Because your orientation does not come from your actions. If anything, your actions emerge from your orientation. You're not straight because you have sex with people of your opposite sex. You're straight because you want to have sex with people of the opposite sex. You're not gay because you, as we hear so often from anti-gay rights advocates, because you engage in homosexual activity. You're gay because you're gay, because you feel a sexual desire for people of your own sex. It has nothing to do with your actions. And I think it's worth conducting this experiment and asking others to think about these same things, especially when the question of gay civil rights is brought up, and when we try to relate it to the black civil rights movement. Because conservatives and people who are anti-gay rights just hate that. They hate having gay civil rights equated with black civil rights. And the argument they almost always use is, well, there's a difference between being a member of a particular race and being gay, because homosexuality is an activity. And being black, for instance, is just a fact of birth. But the problem is, homosexuality is also a fact of birth. They're gay because that's how they feel, because that's the direction that they're pointing. And it seems to me that given the fact that people are gay because that is how they are, that is how they feel, and given the fact that this dreaded homosexual activity that people like Rick Santorum, for instance, are so afraid of and so determined to discourage, when conducted between two consenting adults, same as with heterosexual activity, is completely harmless and not immoral in the slightest. And in fact, would be morally neutral. I think moral neutrality is a very useful concept that is completely lost on a great deal of religious conservatives. There's no reason to discourage it at all. There's no reason to treat gay people any differently than we treat straight people. Because if you are compelled to do something as a result of your inborn nature, and that thing that you do is of no harm to anyone, what possible reason can we have for restricting it, or for punishing you for doing it, or wanting to do it, or relegate you to second-class citizenship because you do that, or because you feel compelled to do it? There's no reason at all. And I put in the bit about it being of no harm to people, because another popular and particularly ugly tactic of anti-gay crusaders is to try and relate homosexuality to something like pedophilia. And the reason why our society frowns on pedophilia so much, and the reason why we discourage pedophilia so much, so strenuously, and we punish it so severely in our laws, and we treat pedophiles in our culture and in our society so horribly, is because that behavior harms another person. It is not an act conducted between two consenting adults. It is an act between an adult and a child who is neither physically nor psychologically able to make the kind of choices, to do the kind of things that the pedophile is imposing upon them. That's why pedophilia is wrong. That's why pedophilia is so frowned upon in our society, because it is one party inflicting harm on another. That's not what homosexuality is. Homosexuality is two consenting parties, or maybe more than two. I shouldn't be using the one thing and another thing model, because if people want to have three ways or four ways or whatever, that's their business. I don't care about that either. But the point is, if it's consenting adults doing what they want to do, causing harm to no one, it's nobody else's business. And thinking about it in these terms, you can use those arguments when someone challenges you, when you bring up Harry Truman racially desegregating the armed forces in the United States, and you say that the same arguments used today against gay rights and against allowing gays to serve openly in the military, which we still hear, unfortunately, even after the repeal of the ban on gays in the military. The Republican candidates for president would love to reinstate that ban. And when you bring up to them that the arguments they use for keeping gay people out of open service in the military are exactly the same as the arguments people used for keeping racial segregation in force in the military in the 40s, they try that, what I just talked about. They pull the, well, it's a different kind of thing card out. And that's not a valid argument. And thinking about the issue in the terms that I discussed at the very beginning of this video, thinking about orientation not in terms of activity, but in terms of feelings, in terms of your nature, completely invalidates that argument. And I think for that reason it's a very useful thought experiment. And it's something that I think you should do if you care about this issue at all. And if you don't, I guess I'm not really talking to you. But if you care about gay civil rights at all, and I do, and I'm especially interested in it now because the governor of my state of Maryland just recently introduced a bill into our state legislature that would legalize same-sex marriage in Maryland. So it's something that is sort of foremost on my mind at the moment, and something that I'm really trying to push and engage. And thinking about gay civil rights in those terms, thinking about homosexuality, sexuality in general, as something that emerges as the result of our feelings and of our nature and not of our activities, is a really useful tool for demonstrating the fallacy of those anti-gay arguments, where they try and claim that fighting for civil rights for a particular racial group is noble and good, but fighting for civil rights for a particular sexual orientation is not good because the orientation is defined by behavior. That's complete bullshit.